G'day. I often get asked about my journey as an F1 photographer. So today, in this video, I thought I'd run through my career for you, starting in 2017, right up to today, April 2020. Shooting F1 is an absolute thrill and a privilege, but I only have been shooting F1 since 2017. Before that, I spent 2.5 years producing a book called Africa on Safari. And over that period, I spent 26 weeks in Africa shooting wildlife for this particular book, which ended up being picked up by National Geographic in Germany for a German edition. So that was my first entree into professional photography, and I loved it. And then I decided, let's look at Formula One. So I applied for accreditation to testing in Barcelona in 2017. Of course, there's a lot fewer photographers there. It's a bit more relaxed, and you get the cars on track for all day, so you've got plenty of chances to take shots. First time at an F1 track, shooting cars in the moat, which is the area just next to the track, I was petrified. I really had little idea of where to stand or what to do. And the pictures I took, I thought, yeah, they're pretty good, but they're pretty ordinary when I look back on it. And any photographer will tell you, the first time you go out and shoot these cars, you don't know where to stand, you don't know what to do, you don't know half the time whether you're even allowed to be where you are standing. So that first 4 days of shooting, no, it was actually 8 days of shooting, I think. Yes, 2 lots of 4 days. And those days were absolute mind benders in terms of quick learning curve. I also applied for the Melbourne race because I thought, well, Melbourne's my closest race. So as someone who's not accredited for the whole year, and that's the way you start in Formula One, I decided to apply race by race. So Melbourne was my first race. So I went along there, once again, clueless, nervous. At this stage, there's probably 60 of the permanent photographers at the track, and there'd be another 30 photographers from local media. So there's 90 odd photographers. We're all in this little media centre, which is one of the most basic on the circuit, and I was pretty excited. So I head out and I shoot different corners, and I was very lucky to have a Perth photographer, Manuel Goria, allow me to shadow him, and I'd spoken to Manuel prior anyway, so I knew a little bit about it. And I just watched what he'd do, where he stood, how he shot, and it gave me a feel for it. But once again, always nervous of, should I be here? Is this the right thing to be doing? My shots were okay, not great, and in fact I don't think they got great until probably end of my second year. But a very exciting experience. That was race number 1. I then applied for race number 2, which was in China, then race number 3 in Bahrain. And while I was in Bahrain, I was in the media centre standing next to Mark Sutton. Now Mark is well known in the F1 circles, been shooting F1 for just about forever. And an opportunity came up where they needed a shooter for Suttons. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I snared the most magnificent opportunity to shoot for one of the great photography houses of Formula One. So for that first year, 2017, I managed to shoot all of the remaining races with Sutton's images. Now, I think there are only about 30 photographers who did every single race in 2017, and I was one of them in my first year. So it was a pretty exciting experience. I remember the first time I got to shoot in pit lane in 2017. At that point, I was race by race, so not a permanent photographer. This is a permanent pass here. This allows me entry into the pits at least 1 session per race. It also gets me onto the grid. But on that particular year, 2017, I had to apply, and luckily I got approval to go into the pits. So I'm down in there, I'm shooting, and I remember I was sitting in one spot and I wasn't paying attention because I think a lot of people are like that the first particular time they go into the pits. They're just overawed by it because it's quite amazing. Cars coming and going, people everywhere. And I was down ready to take a shot of a car, and next thing you know, I felt this arm on my shoulder pull me away, and it was one of the mechanics because there was a car coming in and I wasn't aware of that. So I was most thankful for that particular intervention by that mechanic. But I do remember vividly coming back into the media centre, and I remember Mark Sutton said, "How many did you get?" I had to go, and I said, "Yeah, I think I got about 15 good shots." 15? You'll need a damn sight more than that. And that's when I realised that from a session, I need to come back with 100 or so pictures that are of worthy quality. So that was a very quick eye-opener for me. Throughout the 2017 season, I worked with Suttons, and I worked hard on getting my images better with a lot of coaching from a lot of the very best photographers around. People like Mark Thompson from Getty Images, Florent Gooden from DPPI. And I remember going back to testing in Barcelona. I saw Mark Thompson and he had a dongle on the side of his camera. And I thought, what is that? And I went over and had a chat with him and said, what is that particular thing? And he said, well, that allows us to upload from the camera direct to the internet. And I thought, oh, okay, I better go and get one of those, which I did. And I got my IT staff back in my Perth company to sort out a process of workflow. So what would happen is, and this is what happens with anyone working for an agency, you will take a photo at the track, you'll press a button on the back of your camera if it's a good photo and needs to be got out to the market quickly. That photo will go up to a dongle which sits in your pocket, up to the internet. It then goes back to my Perth office where a couple of minor things are done to the photograph just to enhance it. It then gets automatically put up onto kimillman.com and onto prostarpics.com, and at the same time was sent to Sutton's. So that's the workflow of stuff that needs to come out quickly. And during the gaps between sessions, we will go back and edit maybe 500-600 pictures, pare them down till perhaps you get 100 good ones, and then you will upload them direct to the various websites. So what did I find challenging as a photographer? Well, definitely backgrounds. And so often I'd have very good photographers walk past and they'd look at a shot over my shoulder and they'd say, get rid of that toilet, get rid of that crane out of the background. And I think everybody would be guilty of that when they first start in this sport, that you will go and take a shot that you think's interesting and then you'll look at it later and go, crap in the background. No good. And that's the real challenge, I guess, as a photographer, is to find a spot, see the shot in your mind, make sure it's sharp, the car is clear. And often, if you're shooting at a very low shutter speed, say a 10th or a 20th of a second, you can blur the rubbish out in the background and keep the car sharp. I should just say too that from day one, I've always had a sponsor behind me, and that has been Canity.com. This is online staff training, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. A wealth of fun, short videos designed to get your staff up to speed in so many different areas. Canity.com. Go and have a look now. You won't be disappointed. For all of 2017, I worked with getting my images out to my website and to Sutton's. And at the end of the year, I thought, well, that was fantastic. I did every race, thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll go again next year, but I might only do 6 races. So in that respect, I didn't ask for a repeat season with Sutton's because I didn't expect to be doing any more than 5 or 6 races. But then as the season started and I did the first 3 because they were close to Australia, I thought, oh, I'll keep going. I'm quite enjoying this. Throughout 2018, I had a number of clients taking images from me, but I'd never really taken any interest in social media. And then with 5 races left at the end of the year in 2018, I thought, right, everyone seems to be getting on Instagram. I'll have a crack. Now, I had 1,800 followers and really not much of an idea on what people wanted to see on Instagram. So 5 races from the end of the 2018 season, I started posting. And I posted regularly, 2 or 3 times a day from the track. And I started to see this gentle increase in numbers. And then I thought, well, what about if I posted more and I posted instantly from the track? So I made the arrangements and had a workflow set up such that I could take a photo in the paddock, get it up to you watching on Instagram within a few minutes. In 5 races, I went from 1,800 followers to around 8,000. And that's when I realized that there was some sort of mileage in promoting what I do on Instagram in a positive fashion. So all through the off season I posted. I started the year, I think it was about 10,000 in 2019, and I finished at the end of 2019 at 80,000. So what I'd found was a niche market. People wanting information about what's going on at the track, beautiful pictures, and almost instantly. So I would post sometimes 15 times a day from the track, and I would put up images of things that were happening that I thought were interesting. About halfway through the year, a driver's social media manager contacted me and said, hey, we need some images for our driver's social media. So I thought, yeah, let's do that. So I came to an arrangement there. I then picked up 2 more clients, drivers, at the end of 2019 for 2020. Now, about halfway through the year, my 20-year-old son, Tyler, had been pushing and chirping all the time to do something on YouTube. So I finally relented and I set up a YouTube channel, and actually I already had one, but I wasn't doing much with it, and I had 300 followers. So I went from 300 to 20,000 in maybe 6 weeks, and I realized once again that there was an a real market for information about what goes on behind the scenes at F1. My first video I attempted was one shot on my laptop using the camera at the top of the screen. It was shocking. But I thought, oh well, it was easy to do, and I showed it to my son and he said, you can't put that out. I said, oh really? So now we have to go to this, well, not elaborate, but it's certainly more thorough in terms of a setup to shoot these. I've got my F1 camera here, I've got a couple of lights, radio microphone, and I've got a studio in Messages on hold. But because of the lockdown, I'm having to shoot this video at my general manager's holiday home not far from mine in Lancelin, Western Australia. So within a period, I'd gone from having no interest in social media or YouTube to becoming the #1 followed F1 photographer on Instagram. And as I record this today, which is April 2020, I think there's about 91.8 thousand followers. I tend to focus, certainly with Instagram, more on the people side of things, because I think that's what you're more interested in. Yep, you can get beautiful shots of cars every day of the week. And admittedly, some of my great car shots do really well on social media. But almost always, it's a story about a human that does far better. And whether it be, and I'll give you an example of Lando, I think probably going back halfway through 2019, I hadn't put up many pictures of Lando, thinking there wasn't much of a market for images. I was wrong, very wrong. First few I put up, I thought, wow, he's popular. So I started to focus more on him. And then I started to focus more on the partners of the drivers, because a lot of people wanted to know who's Nico's girlfriend, who's Pierre's girlfriend, that sort of thing. And then I would form relationships with them, which always helped with my photography of them and their partner as well. And then of course, as you develop relationships with drivers, they tend to look at you more in the paddock. So your photos are better because they are looking right down the lens of the camera, your camera, rather than off to the side, or in the case with Lewis, often you'll get him looking away because he doesn't look at, certainly most of us, as he's coming into the paddock. And he is the hardest driver to shoot. I love shooting Formula One. It's always been a passion. I remember going to F1 races going back to Adelaide in, what was it, 90s. A couple I remember I flew from Perth to go and watch. And I took some average shots like everybody else from the stands. But at that stage, did I ever think I was going to be a Formula One photographer? No, it simply came out of the blue. And certainly there's a lot of travel involved, and being based in Perth is probably not the ideal place. I envy my European counterparts who are able to just get on a plane and go 2 or 3 hours to probably 7 or 8 races. Those 7 or 8 races for me are in the order of 24 hours to get there and 24 back. But I enjoy living in Perth, so I'm happy to do that. Will I do it forever? Probably not, but while I'm doing it now, I'm certainly enjoying it. And I love the fact that you're watching this video, that you're interested enough in what goes on at Formula One to take 10 or 12 minutes out of your day to hear my story. So in closing, I thank you for your support. I urge you to get onto my Instagram account and see what I'm doing there at Kim Illman. You'll find all of my best images at prostarpics.com. And when I say my best images, over a typical race weekend, I'll shoot 15,000 images, of which I'll pare it down to about 1,000 that I'll put up onto prostarpics.com. And of those 1,000, there might be 10 great shots, which I earmark for a book at some point. And I had hoped to do that book this year, but obviously I'm not probably going to see that many races, so that may have to go back another year. And you'll find my podcasts and blogs at kimillman.com. Thank you for watching, and stay passionate.